Hi, welcome back. I'm Sean. This is Mark. And this is the third part in our series of the science of charisma that's not a science. And
I love that intro.
In this section, we're going to be talking about the 4 marriage models of charisma. And Mark, I'm really excited about this because in our planning for this, and we don't really script a whole lot of this, but we do put some building blocks around it. And when I saw the work you put into this part, it actually made a lot of sense. So the first, there's 4 of them, and the first one that we're going to do is talking about the marriage of self-awareness and confidence.
Self-confidence and self-awareness, yeah.
And before I throw to you, I just wanted to say that these two are very important when it comes to charisma. And speaking from someone who has spent the last decade really doing every assessment that I could on self-awareness, I actually have a really good idea about what the value I bring, but what my limitations are, and which lane I should be running in, and what my capabilities are in any given situation. That has allowed me to be confident in certain situations. But even before I did all those assessments, I know I was able to physically display confidence, even though there was nothing really behind it. Can you explain the difference and the supporting elements of why those?
Yeah, I'll talk to these elements together, and I guess this is that first of 4 when we talk about the science of charisma that's not a science. How can we actually apply some skills to be more charismatic? Yeah. These 4 marriage kind of pairs allow us to do that. By working on these, we can be more charismatic. So the self-confidence and the self-awareness, they go, self-confidence is certainty in yourself, an ability to back your decisions and choices. It's what we referenced to some degree in the second video, which is being unapologetic for who you are, not feeling you have to justify that, and be comfortable absolutely within one's own skin. Self-awareness, and under that self-confidence comes as well this self-efficacy, respect for yourself, and self-esteem. So self-efficacy, knowing your skill set as well. Yeah. And self-esteem, respect for yourself, all of that comes there. Self-awareness is knowing where those limitations lie. And a story I can share to this, when I worked for Kentucky in Europe, my first role with them, and before I was their training manager, for the first 2 years on tours, if people asked me a question, I almost felt I had to have an answer.
Yeah.
And I'd try and find, and then you get to realization, you go, nobody has an answer for everything. I don't have an opinion on absolutely everything because I'm not an encyclopedia. I might have to go and find out. And so it's awareness, is knowing what those limits are, and again, being comfortable with what those limits are. It's being a self-awareness, knowing what your impact is on other people, and then adapting to that. All of that then you can work on. Can I work on my self-confidence and self-awareness? Absolutely. And that's the first marriage pair that when you do, it will impact your natural charisma that's going to come out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me personally, I think confidence is something that is more of a feeling, an emotion, or an energy that comes. But the self-awareness, you can actually do a lot of work. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of assessments there to help you identify your true self. But you have a couple as well.
We've got modules. So in my first book, Ignite Your Potential, there's chapters that relate to that. And then also within the Academy, all the programs around emotional intelligence and the Thought Tank program specifically are very relatable to this. So the Potential program, which is a personal development program, or the Thought Tank program, specifically the emotional intelligence, even the DISC or the motivation, but specifically the EQ chapters would be very relevant to this, and you can work on that. But those 2 themes, did you work on those? There's a quote, and again, this is unscripted. You go, best outfit somebody can wear, right? Self-confidence. It's not the jeans. Yeah. it's they're rocking their self-confidence. That's so self-awareness, self-confidence married together is a formidable combination, and that's something you can consciously work on and improve. And when you do so, it is absolutely going to impact your charisma as perceived by other people.
Excellent. Now, when we talk about self-awareness and confidence, now, generally in one of those 2 areas, and they are 2 separate things, hopefully you've gathered that by now, I want you to grab your worksheet. And I want you to put a score of 1 to 10 about how well masterful you think you are in being totally self-aware. I know exactly what my strengths, my value, my limitations, everything, how I'll react in different situations. Score yourself out of 10. 10 being, I own it. 1, I got a lot of work to do. Okay, and if you do, I'm sure Mark will be able to help you out with that. With confidence, I want you to do the same thing as well. And I want you to think about confidence can waver from different situations and environments and the people you're with. How you are with your family or friends might be different with a customer or business-to-business relationship. Try to think about the essence, the aura of yourself. How confident are you in general? All right. So don't try to think about just one situation. Think about how confident you are in yourself and your abilities. Okay. And score yourself out of 10. The next exercise from that is we want you to think about what are 3 things that you can do to help get you closer to 10. All right. So we're going to take a little break before we move on to the next marriage, but take a couple minutes and work on that. All right. Excellent. See you soon. Much along the same lines. So the marriage model in this one is presence and being present.
Correct. Yeah, correct. So presence is, think about presence, it's you're owning your space. My presentation skills program, actually, I'll share a story now with this, is I've got a whole program on presentation skills, of which this is a part. And I deliberately, when I roll that program with business clients, corporate clients, even big rooms, I deliberately do it with no technology, because you learn that all the technology and bells and whistles is the cherry and the marzipan on top. You can do the same thing and engage all the senses without. And I've got a line, and it's 4 words that I teach people is to do with this presence thing, which is whenever you're making a presentation, you remind yourself quietly, internally, upstairs in your own mind, it's my room, bitch. So you're telling yourself, because it makes you, I'm there to do something with purpose. I'm there to get a message across. And no matter what happens, I need to step up to the plate and own that space. It's owning the space. So presence, to separate the two, is literally, imagine it is your space. It's body language. It's standing tall. It's opening the diaphragm. It's open body language. It's the looking around and engaging the people that you are in the audience that you're with. That is having presence, like that you're noticed. This is where even to some degree, it's not around this, but certainly who you turn up as in style or whatever, putting some thought to that can have an impact. But it's body language, eye contact, and you owning your space. Being present is now merging that with the people in conversation with. It's I'm here now. I'm attentive. I'm listening. I'm attentive to everything that's going on with, for, and around me. So being present is now embracing your whole environment within that. Presence, you carrying yourself, being present, engaging that with the here and now with whoever you're with.
Yeah.
Eye contact with them. That's... Yeah.
And that is so important. Have you ever had one of those conversations where you're meeting someone for the first time and you're starting to get a feel of who they are? Their self-awareness is pretty good, their confidence is through the roof, and geez, they got a presence that's, hi, how you doing? I'm Tom. And you go, great. And then you go engage in conversation, and then all of a sudden they just kind of eyes wander around the room, checking the time. It's not that you're boring. It's probably, they have a responsibility to be present with you. You wouldn't think they're very charismatic if they all of a sudden they started breaking that.
They lose it, and I can see as soon as you started saying that, I could see that's where you're going to go. Somebody can start really good, great energy, that's presence, but being present, you've lost. So this is again why I call it this marriage model. It's marrying those two. Yeah. There's similarity and duality with them. They work very well together, but make sure we're doing both.
Make sure, guys, if whether it's in sales or dating, this is a really important one. Okay, so if your audience or the other person you're trying to connect with, if you're not nailing this, it's lights out. Forget about it. You've dropped everything. It's one thing to show up
potentially,
and
potentially you're losing brownie points on some of these.
Yeah, that's right. You got some digging to do. So anyway, so for this exercise, I want you to think about presence and being present. All right, and if you do have significant other or friend or family, this might be a good time just to give them a call and ask them, how well do I communicate with you? Do you feel that I listen to you? Beware, they may give you an answer that you're not willing to hear. But I think it's important because...
I might jump and say, actually, that's one activity that I would say for all 4 of these marriage models. You could even go back and do it retrospectively for the first one. You can certainly do it for the next. But building a column and doing a self-reflective, like a 360, and asking other people's, but also doing a self-analysis on that, giving yourself a score, and being a realistic, like the last one, what are my skills? Build that stock take list, asking other people, what do you think I could, well, where can I improve? For this one, absolutely asking somebody else and getting that 360 from people you trust. Now,
Yeah.
but not
And
necessarily
respect.
and respect, not
Yeah.
necessarily your friends. Your best friends often, when we ask for their input, are going to tell us exactly what they think we want us to hear. So for this activity, you could do it for all four dichotomies, but ask somebody that you know knows you, whose opinion you respect and is credible, but doesn't necessarily have to be your best friend or is going to tell you what you think you want to hear. It's
Yeah.
better have a separate answer from that.
Yeah, watch Best Friends. Depending on your relationship with your mother, I mean, she could be the best person to ask or the worst. I think it also is good into linking back with the self-awareness as well. It's good to get that outside perspective. I remember when I was going through my own personal branding assessments and awareness, I reached out to people. I reached out to Mark and other people that I respected and knew would give me the truth about, what were the top 3 words that come to mind when you think about me or us working together. This can be slightly the same. Is how well do you think I listen to you, or how well do you think that we communicate? Do you feel that I'm with you when we are together? That would be a really good ranking for yourself. Now, once you've given yourself a score out of 10 on presence and being present, I want you to think about what are the top 3 actions that you could do on either, just to boost them up again. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a break, allow you some time to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to come back to the 3rd marriage model.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you. See you soon. All right, welcome back. Now we're on to our 3rd marriage model. I always have to take a pause when I'm saying that.
Tongue twister.
Yeah. 3rd marriage model of charisma. Okay, now this one is, I came in with too much energy on that one. I feel like I should say, this one is about calmness and genuine care.
That's exactly it.
So do you want to walk us through it?
Yes, calmness and genuine care. There's a quote I've always loved, and if you've read the first book, you would see it in there a couple of times, and that is, it's not what happens that's important, it's how you choose to respond. And again, I relate often to my days touring where there's crises, and when you learn that calmness, that nothing can disturb that calm, and you can react to situations calmly, it really is a charismatic thing. People will really respect that. There's a whole load of stories I can share around this. The 9/11, when the towers went down, there was a business, Sandler O'Neill Investment Bank, and the leader there, the 2 of the leaders died in the incident. The one that was left alive was on a golf course playing, and he was the one that would boss people around. Jimmy Dunn, his name was. And he watched his business literally go into ashes. He knew he had to make his way to a space, and it's archived. He talks about before he got there, he paused, and he knew the one thing he had to master that day was the one thing he was poor at, which was calmness. To be calm, because that infects other people around. And again, that's why I referenced that. But for me on tour, it was the same thing. It was one of my rules on tours. I only had 3, and that was, unless you see me stress, you're not allowed to stress, because I knew that no matter what happened, I'd learned over years of touring and all the crisis and drama that happened, I'd be able to at least stay calm to resolve it. So calmness is it's an attractive quality in people. People that make you feel calm and you get calm, it's a super attractive, understated quality.
Yeah.
And so that's one aspect of it. The second is this genuine warmth. So you can be calm, but that's not the same still as warmth. The genuine warmth then is still an absolute interest in the other person's shoes. It's an ability to put yourself in the people you're dealing with shoes. It's to use traits of emotional intelligence such as empathy. It's that ability to empathize and actually put yourself in their situation. It's things like having less judgment. It's easy to jump to judgment because of our prior life experiences and how we see things. Something starts happening, we start giving it the same meaning because we're meaning-making machines. So that genuine warmth, genuine care, genuine kindness is hitting pause on the judgments.
Yeah.
And it's about embracing and being more accepting, more tolerant, and more empathetic. So that's those 2 together. Super powerful, slightly different than the presence one when you're out. This is now more the still.
Yeah, and they're really important. Empathy, right? Because imagine you're reaching out to someone who's of charismatic nature and someone that you know and respect and trust, and you tell them, my business is going, down the gurgler, or my wife's left me, my dog's, got hit by a car, and whatever else, cowboy song you can throw into this. But imagine the other person being really calm and listening and going, yeah, well, you're stuffed, at the end of it. Again, that breaks the charisma element, doesn't it? You kind of go, man, that sucks. I really held that person there. So they are really important together. So I think you illustrate that beautifully. There's a tolerance element in there as well.
100%. Yeah, tolerance. That's another word that fits well with that. Tolerating, acceptance, less judgment, right consideration, perspectives, thinking about different perspectives you hadn't thought about, having empathy, even if you've not experienced it, put yourself in their shoes and hypothesize what might that be like. No different. I mean, when you're selling even, I often say to people in business and selling, when they're selling, they may not have run a small business, but they're selling to a small business of any kind. Yeah. You don't have to have had it to be able to just visually put yourself in that situation and imagine what might be the pains I'm experiencing. And 60 to 70% of them, if you're probably going to come up with them reasonably on the money and correct.
Yeah.
There might be some nuances you don't. So empathy is just putting yourself into that helicopter view of the situation rather than your one filter of looking at it from your own life.
Yeah, it's really important. Like going back into 1930s, Dale Carnegie, or Carnegie, however you want to pronounce his name, talking about, we know when someone else has your best interest in heart. So if you're dealing with someone and you just get sense of that genuine care is just not there, the charisma's gone.
Yes.
The shine, the love, all gone.
Yeah.
So it's really important marriage. Okay, so what we'll ask you again to do is grab your worksheet and think about calmness and genuine care and give yourself a score out of 10. And which one you think that you need the most work in, and develop 3 action points that you can work on. And we're going to give you a couple minutes and we'll be right back with the last marriage model for charisma. See you soon. Hi, welcome back to our 4th marriage model of charisma. And this one, I think, we're going to actually expand on in a separate segment or module down the track, I think, because this one's really important, and it's I think it holds a lot of weight in the charisma element. And this one is about the ability to influence and personal power.
Yeah. So again, it's a marriage, and I'll separate the two from my perspective, which is why I've come up with this model. The ability to influence, think about that as being credible in your field. Like, we all learn and harbor experiences and gather those experiences and knowledge. And then what do you do with that as a part of your ability to influence? So I know from when I present, you've seen me as a presenter, I'm presenting to things that I've built over years that I absolutely know and I believe in personally. Yeah. And that is, it's the ability to influence is, how do I package this in a way I've got it credibility? How can I now package this and be open in the sharing and the giving of that knowledge, but also your energy, right? That's your ability to influence as well. I talk about, people with like tuning forks. You're vibrating an energy, and whatever you're giving out, you're going to get back. And from a stage keynote, I often talk about the fact that if you want your audience to be engaged, how engaged do you want them to be? And then throw that fuel on the fire yourself. Because if you turn up and you're flat, you're getting flatness back. If you're fully back to the last marriage, present, and you're giving that energy, you will get that back. And that's that ability to influence, is the energy and the knowledge and the giving of all of that to people. The personal power piece is then an ability to back yourself on the information you're sharing and make a stand for the choices and the values that you believe in. It's like, if you think about flavors, you don't want to be vanilla here. You actually want to be the flavor. And there's something very attractive as a quality in people, I've found, that is that personal power, personal belief, and making a stand for that versus toe the line or just sit in the middle of the lane. So that's what these two does. And there's definitely scope. We're going to expand on these, but that's a great starting point of this marriage.
I'm glad you brought up the personal power element and making a decision. Now, this can extend to personal branding, but I think we're a diverse culture around the world, and thank God we are. If we were all the same, it'd be bloody boring. Unless they're all like me, and then it's awesome. But this is really important because it is personal brand, but that also serves into the charisma element. People want to know who you are and what you stand for, and that personal power is really, really important. And a lot of people get scared because they go, oh, I don't want to be perceived one way or the other. Well, they're going to perceive you anyway. You might as well be authentic and true to what you stand for, yeah?
Correct, 100%, 100%. I think, though, this is definitely a topic. There's other elements we go into. Decision making, as you were talking there, that being decisive. Decision making is a part of this, you know. If we've made that decision, backing ourselves on it, not flip-flopping all the time, right? That's personal power as well. So there's so many ways we can take that conversation, and we will in future content, but great starting point. What do I believe in? Am I backing it? Am I being decisive? Am I conveying my personal belief in that?
Yeah.
And then giving of your energy and your knowledge generously and openly is your ability to influence. You can't, if you don't share your perspective and opinion, you can't influence.
And if you do it with energy, nobody, if you don't have the energy, nobody cares.
Yeah, I mean, there is an expression which is relevant here, which may seem counterintuitive, and I love saying it though, and nobody in the world actually has enough words or wisdom to tell anybody how to do anything. Ultimately, they tell themselves because they make choice up here. But in context, without words and our wisdom and our energy and the way we communicate, that is the only tool we have got, and the creativity we use to try and help people get a different perspective. That is why it is our ability to influence. Ability to influence, but not to control. People still have to make those choices. Nobody has enough words, wisdom, power, or charisma to make anybody do anything, but they certainly have the ability to influence people to follow the words they're sharing.
Yeah, there is a whole nother module on this. So we will send that out. Keep an eye out on that in the future. But for now, you have a worksheet. If you haven't downloaded the worksheet, you've got a lot of making up to do. We're at the end of the 3-part series. But it is here to download if you want to come and join us now. What we're asking you to do is consider the two, the ability to influence and the personal power, and give yourself a rating out of 10 about how strong you are in each of these areas and how well do you own it. And if you are a bit on the lower side, what are 3 action points that you can do that helps drive you towards a 10?